In this free plugin overview, we are going to go over one of the best free mixing tools available that is a must-have for your workflow, the ISOL8. What's up everyone, it's Daniel here from SoundShock Audio. Now if this is your first time here and you want to get more in-depth free plugin reviews, expert production tutorials, interviews with music industry professionals, and exclusive free sample packs, then hit the subscribe button and the bell notification next to it so you get notified every time I release a new video. So this is going to be the very first installment of the free plugins overview. And the goal of this little series is to show you guys that you do not need to spend money on expensive plugins to have professional studio grade software. There is an incredible amount of excellent free software available, and I'm going to go over some of the best free plugins and go over practical examples of how you can use them in your tracks. So again, spending a bunch of money on plugins is really not necessary with all the great free tools out there today. And now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to go over the ISOL8 by TB Pro Audio. The ISOL8 is an advanced mix monitoring tool. It divides the frequency range into 5 bands. These 5 bands can be soloed or muted individually. Doing this will help you to concentrate on certain frequency ranges during the mixing and mastering process. ISOL8 was originally designed for your master track, but it can be used on individual audio tracks as well as your track buses. So now let's go over all the controls of ISOL8 so you can get a better understanding of how this plugin works. As mentioned, it mutes and solos individual frequency ranges. And we can do this with the 10 buttons in the middle of the plugin here. And you'll notice that we have abbreviations for the frequency ranges on these buttons. The LF stands for low frequencies, the LMF stands for low mid frequencies, the MF stands for mid frequencies, the HMF stands for high mid frequencies, and the HF stands for high frequencies. So let's have a listen to what some of this muting and soloing does. Again, this is great for honing in your mix and referencing other tracks. And if we turn our attention to the top of the plugin here, we can see the crossover knobs, the X1, the X2, the X3, and the X4. And these will help you set the frequency ranges of specific parts of the frequency spectrum. So the X1 will set the crossover point between the low frequencies and the low mid frequencies, the X2 between the low mid frequencies and the mid frequencies, the X3 between the mid frequencies and high mid frequencies, and the X4 between the high mid frequencies and the high frequencies. And when we adjust these knobs, we can see that the different frequency ranges change here. So if we wanted to adjust the low mid frequency and low frequency crossover point, we go ahead and do that with X1. So let's have a listen to how this affects the crossover point here. So if we turn the X1 all the way up to 699 Hertz, we can hear that more frequencies are being allowed into this specific band. And then if we turn our attention to the bottom right of the plugin here, we will see the attenuation in the dim button here with a value of -18 right below it. What this will do is simply reduce the volume of the track that the ISOL8 is on by -18 decibels. And you can set the decibel range by dragging your mouse over. And this will be handy if we wanted to reference our mix at different volume levels here. So let's have a listen. So it goes down -18 decibels. And then we have a standard output button that adjusts how much volume is coming out of the plugin here. And then to the left of this output knob, we have our different monitoring options. The L will just solo the left speaker here. And the R, the right. And then the M will solo the mid part of the stereo field. And then the S will solo the sides of the stereo field. Again, these are great monitoring tools to use to help mix your track. And then we have the channel mode here to the left of the monitoring. And if we click on the channel mode, we can see that we have a bunch of different options here: stereo, left, right, mid, sum, and side difference. And what this allows you to do is apply the 5-band frequency monitor to the stereo field, only the left channel, only the right channel, the mid part of the stereo field or mono part of the stereo field, or just the sides. So let's click the left here and show how this works. So let's solo the low mid frequencies here. Click the left channel. So we can hear just the low mid frequencies in our left monitor here. And then let's click the right. You can hear that the low mid frequencies are not soloed here, as once again the filters are only being applied to the left monitor here. And then right below, we have the slope of the filters for our 5-band frequency monitor. So if we want these crossover points to be a little bit steeper, we can go ahead and click it and do 48 decibels per octave. Let's hear the difference between 48 decibels per octave and 24. So you can hear with the steeper slope, less frequencies are being allowed into this specific frequency range. And then finally, at the top right of the plugin, we have the filter bypass, which simply just bypasses the entire filter. So now that we know all the functions of this plugin and what it is used for, let's go over some practical examples of how you can apply this plugin to your mixes. One of the most effective ways to use this plugin is to use it to analyze tracks that fit the same style or genre that you're producing. Since we can zoom in on each specific part of the frequency spectrum, as well as the stereo field, we can analyze each specific frequency range and use those sonic footnotes to help guide us on how to mix our track. So let's say we have a reference track here, and we really like the low end of this track, and we really want to try and replicate that really nice, impactful sound that it has. What we can do is listen to the track and solo the low frequencies and the low mid frequencies and hear how the instruments are interacting with each other and how loud individual instruments are. So let's have a listen to our reference track here. If we were using this track as a reference without soloing these specific frequency bands, the high frequencies, the mid frequencies, and the high mid frequencies could distract us from analyzing the low frequencies in our reference track. So what we can now do is go into our drums and replicate the same energy and impact that these low frequency elements are creating. So we can hear that our kick is sounding nice and punchy, but we need to bring up the bass a little bit in our track to make it a little bit more comparable, to give a little bit more weight like our reference track. So we go into the bass. So we can now hear that our low end sounds a little bit thicker and more impactful. And we were able to compare the low frequency impact that our reference track had to our own track. And this type of referencing can also be done in the mid and side of the stereo field. So you can compare your reference track's sides to your own to see if it's making the impact that you want it to. So we can hear that the reference track has a little bit more mid frequency and low mid frequency stereo information. So if we wanted to, we can add more weight in the sides of our stereo field in those specific frequency ranges. So doing this type of referencing is invaluable for your mix. And another way that you could use this plugin is by putting it on individual tracks or on groups of tracks here. So let's go ahead and put our ISOL8 on our instruments. Let's solo our instruments here. So we could solo individual bands and see if any EQing needs to be applied here to help clean up the sound or have it create the impact that we want it to. So let's go ahead and solo some frequency ranges. And you can also mute frequency ranges to see how the different frequency ranges impact the mix. So I can hear that in the mid frequencies here, between 700 Hertz and 2500 Hertz, is a little bit sharp and a little bit muddy. So I can go ahead and use an EQ here and put it on our instrument group. Put that before the ISOL8 here and do some EQing. You go ahead and solo that band to help us narrow in on the range that we want to EQ. So this is the area that seems a little bit sharp. Go ahead and notch out a bit of this with the EQ. So that cleans up the mix a little bit here. And that's going to do it for this plugin review. Once again, if you wanted to download the plugin, I have put a link in the description. And if you guys haven't checked out SoundShock Audio yet, then I highly recommend you do so, as SoundShock has the largest free music production content library on the web right now. That's right, the largest, with DAW templates, music production apps for iOS and Android, presets for all the major synthesizers, contact instruments, samples and loops organized by genre and instrument, and of course, more free plugins for you guys. So don't miss out on this opportunity to grab the best free downloads available. So until next video, everyone, this is Daniel from SoundShock Audio, out.